Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Crystal?
We do. So much going on. So we have a great interview with ContraPoints on cancel culture. We have an expert who has been digging deep into those crazy Iowa results to tell us what's right and what's wrong and maybe what the path is going forward. And also a bunch of new polls out of New Hampshire, so we'll dig into the trends there. But let's start with Iowa, which continues to be the most, disastrous disaster that has ever occurred in politics.
The New York Times had a great story on this called How the Iowa Caucus Became an Epic Fiasco for Democrats. I really do encourage everybody to go read it because it lays out how the problems on this were already laid out from the beginning with the reporting infrastructure, with all of this. And what always was so insane about the smartphone and all this app, and all they had to do was call in the results like they've done before, and they could have gotten us the results ASAP.
Right.
But they didn't do that. And so by trying to lean into the technology, they made it so that we are what? How many days has it been since Iowa?
Has
it been a week?
1
week since yesterday, and we don't know who won. At the same time, Faz Shakir, Bernie Sanders' campaign manager, has said they're going to ask for a recanvass in specific districts. But, even that may not be enough.
We may never know, truly.
I don't think we're ever going to know. I saw some political reporters that I really respect saying the only thing that could really fix this is a recount, and probably not enough people want to go down that road. I think the campaigns have to pay for a recount. It's a mess.
Well,
the whole thing is a mess.
And the Iowa Democratic Party is what is making, to me, an insane argument that if you find that the math was incorrect, because remember, you have the first alignment, the second realignment, and then the state delegate equivalents that get calculated out of those results. So if you find that those SDEs were calculated incorrectly, the Iowa Democratic Party is taking the position that, sorry, we can't change it. Even if we see and we know that it's clearly wrong, we can't change it, which of course, happens to benefit Pete Buttigieg. Weird that that's the case. But I thought it was one of the interesting parts of this New York Times article is they talk about how the Iowa Democratic Party is trying to blame the complications on the fact that they had to reveal these three sets of data.
Right.
And Jeff Weaver, who's senior Sanders advisor, called them out and said, look, you've always had to calculate this data. It's just now we can actually
release
see it.
Right.
So if this was the issue, this has been a fraud for 100 years. And that's the thing is I think that it makes you realize, and remember in 2016, this contest was incredibly tight. We've had a number of incredibly tight Iowa contests. How can you have any confidence in those results either? Chances are they were wrong too.
I mean, there you go. It's like the more transparency, the more we realize how the caucus system itself in Iowa is probably irrevocably broken. And it really does show how... and I'm not sure if you saw it, Tom Perez was on the Sunday shows, pressed by Jake Tapper. He's like, why shouldn't you resign? And he completely refuses to take any responsibility for this, or even talk about his decision to call for a recanvass at the very last moment with 97%. I mean,
Once it started to look good for Bernie Sanders, then it was enough is enough.
That's what I loved about what Ryan said. Ryan said, okay, let's assume there's no malfeasance whatsoever, which I think is probably more close to the truth than not. That why would you even have the appearance of trying to manipulate the results and the media narrative by throwing yourself into the process? So from that's how I think that institutional biases, they rack up, right? So that's how it all a series of step-by-step decisions that all happen to benefit the candidate who, what so many of the viewers of this show tagged us in that result about Nevada, of that Nevada caucus hiring that woman who used to work for Pete Buttigieg. I mean, Bernie's campaign manager came out and said, oh, well, we spoke into Nevada and she won't have any effect on actually calculating the vote totals. But it's like, yeah, but she still works there.
Why are you even going down this path? Why was this person even considered for this role? I mean, again, even if there's nothing really problematic, the fact that you would create that perception is in and of itself an issue. But I think you're exactly right. And this is what I said in our live LA show. Thank you guys who came out for that. It was amazing to see you all in person. But no, basically, every time there was a decision to be made, they picked the decision that went in favor of Pete and against Bernie. That's how it works. Every time there was a choice to be made, you make the choice that is good for Pete. And so it's not like it's a grand scheme or conspiracy, but the impact is just the same as there had been.
It's just as pernicious. Yeah, that's what people are like, well, it's not, rigged. Nobody's like, do this. And I'm like, you don't need somebody to command you. This is how ideology and institutions shape how decisions are made. And
Right.
people need to understand that whenever every single one of those decisions goes against you, it might as well be rigged.
Right. And that's exactly, I mean, it's the exact same way media bias works,
Yes.
right? It's not like there's any grand conspiracy, but it's just every time there's a decision of how to write the headline, what to include, which polls to focus on, who to fact check, how to present it, how to conduct the
That's how you
interview,
get
what
screwed.
stories, you just one after another, the decision is made, and it leads to a completely skewed matrix, as if there was someone overarching saying, we're going to screw over Bernie Sanders and help Pete Buttigieg. And I mean, the fact that DNC Chair Tom Perez is not being pressured by everyone to resign, and I know there have been some calls, but you just bungled the most important contest of the entire primary, and it comes down to you. I know he wants to foist this all off on the Iowa Democratic Party, and there's plenty of blame to go around, but you are the head of the party. You have irrevocably broken trust with the Sanders movement and with so many voters who came out to volunteer, who put their lives on hold to try to make this caucus the event that it should have been. The fact that there's no accountability says everything, and I think it's important what Matt Stoller, friend of the show, keeps pointing out. It is remarkable that the one thing that Barack Obama has decided to dirty his hands with since leaving the presidency was making sure Tom frickin' Perez was head of the DNC, and that is a pretty remarkable statement.
There you go. All right.
We're going to tell you what's on our radars. That is next.